Good morning. We are going to continue our lesson about the nervous system. Now we are going to investigate the central nervous system. Central nervous system is composed of brain and spinal cord. What is the function of the central nervous system? Its main function is to coordinate all the body functions and to relay messages, processes information, and to analyze the response. How does this happen? When sensory neurons carry information about the environment to the spinal cord, comes the role of the interneurons, which can do one thing of two. It can respond through a reflex arc directly, or it can send this information to the brain to be stored. Interneurons in the brain send the messages to the motor neurons, and the body will respond while other neurons is going to store this information in the brain. This is the brain. Brain is protected by the skull because its tissues are very fragile. It is the control center of the body because it is responsible for almost all the body activities, and it is responsible to maintain homeostasis across the whole body. An information for you: brain contains over 100 billion neurons. Brain only contains over 100 billion neurons. So what are the parts of the brain? If you looked here, this big area, it is called the cerebrum, and this green part at the base of the brain, cerebellum, and the medulla oblongata or medulla oblongata. So the brain is made of three main parts: cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. So let's start with the cerebrum. Cerebrum, as you can see here, it is divided into two big halves. Each half is called a hemisphere, and it is connected from the bottom by a bundle of nerves. That's how they can coordinate together at some functions. What is the function of the cerebrum? It is responsible mainly for the voluntary movements inside the body and also for the thought processes like learning. The folds and the grooves on the cerebrum, these folds, as you can see here, this what increase the surface area and allow more complicated thought processes. So this is the cerebral hemispheres or the cerebrum. Like we said, it is divided into two halves from the above, as you can see, right hemisphere and left hemisphere, and they are connected at the bottom by a bundle of nerves. From a side view, it is divided into loops: frontal loop, temporal loop, parietal loop, and occipital loop. Each loop is responsible for certain functions in the brain. Next, the cerebellum. Cerebellum is located at the base of the brain to maintain balance and coordination between the organs. It is responsible also for the movement of the skeletal muscles and involved with motor skills like riding a bike or playing a piano. In brief, cerebellum maintains your balance, and it is the organ that is responsible for your walk without falling, or riding a bike and control it. Like we said, it is located at the back of the brain. Medulla oblongata is located also at the base of the brain, and it is the connecting part between the brain and the spinal cord. Medulla oblongata main function is to control the involuntary processes like breathing, heartbeats, and blood circulation. So if any damage happen to the medulla oblongata, the affected person will die. The second part of the CNS, or the central nervous system, is the spinal cord. Look here at the picture. The spinal cord extends along the back and it is connected to the brain through the medulla oblongata here. So we can describe the spinal cord like a nerve column that extends from the brain to the lower back, and it is protected by the surrounding bones, which are called vertebrae. Spinal nerves extend from the spinal cord to different parts of the body. These are the spinal nerves. It extends to almost all body parts. That's how they are connected to the central nervous system. What about the tissue composing the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord? The central nervous system has two kinds of tissues: the gray matter and white matter. The gray matter contain all the cell body, the dendrites, and the axon terminals, so it is where all the synapses are, while the white matter is made of axons only, connecting different parts of gray matter to each other. This is the gray matter. This is the gray matter. This is a frontal section of the brain. Like we said, the gray matter contain all the cell bodies, the dendrites, and axon terminals. And the inner part here, this is the white matter, and it includes axons only. The difference between the brain and the spinal cord in these matters is that the brain have the gray matter in the outer layer, which is called the cerebral cortex, and the white matter in the inner layer. But in case of the spinal cord have the white matter in the outer layer and the gray matter in the inner layer. The spinal cord is responsible mainly for the body reflexes. Look at the animation. The second you touched a hot surface, your hand moves immediately without even a single thought from you. This is done by your spinal cord. How it's done? When an effector is applied, like this picture, nerve impulses are sent from the sensory neurons to the spinal cord, which give its order to the motor neurons to move. When sensory neurons carry information about the environment to the spinal cord, interneurons might respond through a reflex arc. We studied the reflex arc. It's a pathway of sensory neurons, interneurons, and motor neurons, and we said that the brain is not included in this pathway because we need a very quick response. So if we need a very quick response, the sensory neurons will send the signal to the spinal cord and it will respond immediately through a reflex arc. If no quick response is needed, the spinal cord, the interneurons, will relay these informations to the brain to be stored. So this is almost the main headlines of the lesson today. The main parts of the nervous system are central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Today we studied the central nervous system. The main function of the central nervous system is to coordinate all the body functions. It is composed of two parts. One, the brain, which is divided into cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Cerebrum is responsible for the voluntary movements and thinking processes. Cerebellum is responsible for your balance, and medulla oblongata is responsible for all involuntary movements and processes like heartbeats, breathing, and so on. The second part is the spinal cord, and spinal cord is mainly responsible for all the body reflexes. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.